Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of March 29th to April 4th, and I hope you guys had at least enjoyed April Fool's Day in some form, in some capacity, though. Hopefully, guys, you were still able to get some kind of chuckle despite what's going on in the world right now and all that, though, although I'm sure hopefully some of the jokes were in good taste and not in terrible taste. And like anything for us, for plenty of gamers out there, there are certainly some like fake announcements. Some of them are clever, some of them can kind of rub people the wrong way. And I know there were some that you could see coming a mile away and some that you didn't see coming, though. I mean, I remember one a while back, one article did a joke about how the Umbrella Corporation needed a bailout. I might have mentioned this before in the past, which I get the joke, but that one felt like you kind of saw that one coming a mile away and all that. Well, anyway, we got 5 stories to cover this week, including a rumor about several upcoming Mario games, including possible remasters and all that stuff. More controversy with Randy Pitchford and Borderlands 3, a game that I really don't think needs to get any more controversy, to be exact. Surprise announcement of an entry of the Cold Steel series. The 4th one looks like it will be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Some bad news regarding The Last of Us 2, which kind of raises some questions about possibility that we could see other games maybe get delayed, and maybe even possible the Xbox Series X or PS5 could not be impacted because of the whole coronavirus situation. And I want to give my thoughts on the Bravely Default 2 demo that was just recently came out. I want to give my thoughts about it after playing the demo for a little bit. Before we get started, we'll do a quick rundown, and what I like to view is the quick My 2 Cent part. So we'll start off with the first one, and this has to do with Bethesda, and this has to do with their E3 and QuakeCon. And unfortunately, it seems as though QuakeCon is going to be canceled this year, and obviously we all know because of the situation with the whole, coronavirus situation and so forth. And while it certainly is disappointing, especially for those who may be looking forward to QuakeCon and so forth, it's understandable given the current situation that we are in right now. Maybe they'll reschedule it again or anything like that, but for right now it looks like QuakeCon is not going to happen this year, at least from what I've been reading. We also learned that Bethesda will not be doing a digital presentation this year. They're claiming they'll have stuff to show, but we'll have to wait and see what they have to show. I'm hoping they can make up for what happened with Fallout 76, because let's be honest, Fallout 76 really has damaged Bethesda's reputation, and they need to find a way to sort of earn people's trust back, especially how the whole Fallout 76 situation was handled. We also learned about supposedly Platinum's 4th special game, and in this one, well, let's just say it rubbed people the wrong way, and supposedly they made an announcement that they would announce their 4th part of the Platinum 4 on April 1st. When they made that announcement, I felt like that kind of raised some red flags right there, especially when you want to do it on April Fools. Well, they did, and it turned out to be it was for a non-existent arcade cabinet, something Solar, or I forgot the name. I apologize if I did, but apparently not everyone was happy with the joke. While some people thought it was funny, others did not, and this kind of prompted Platinum to kind of explain why they made the joke and all that stuff. Still, it kind of rubbed people the wrong way, and recently they announced that they have a 5th game to announce, sort of like a bonus level or anything like that. Now, I don't know if this was they planned to announce a 5th one, or this was sort of like damage control after their April Fool's joke didn't work out as well. But either way, we'll find out what their 5th announcement is. Hopefully, it's something good or anything like that. Personally, I would hopefully it would be something about Bayonetta 3, but who knows what it is on that one. We also learned that Chrome Studio wants to do ties the Tasmanian Tiger 2 and 3. They want to make those games, as from some of you may or may not be aware. The first one is currently out right now. I just recently downloaded on my Nintendo Switch and all that. And supposedly they'll look at seeing how well the first one did. And if it does well, they'll probably bring the second and third one over. I hope they are able to do that. Hopefully we'll see how well the first one does. I did play it a little bit though last night though, and although the game maybe have came out back in 2002 when 3D was starting to get the ball rolling, I could see the charm and appeal that the game has. I have to dig in a little bit more, but I do hope it does well enough that the second and the third one do happen. We also learned about that Nier, apparently they are basically reworking, or supposedly, I don't think they're calling it a remaster, but they're going to rework the first Nier game that was released back on, I think, the PS3 and Xbox 360 for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One. And although Platinum is not developing this game, some of the folks who worked on Nier Automata supposedly will be helping out on this one. Not to mention there's going to be some sort of mobile RPG from the Nier creator. So obviously the success of Nier Automata, not only for many, Platinum likes to claim that helped save them as well, but obviously it got people interested in the series, and obviously Square Enix is taking a look and figure, maybe we should take a look at this again. Maybe we should take a look at the first one. So glad that they're re-examining the first one. I'm looking forward to seeing how the first one plays, because I never played the first one, to be exact. Automotive, I did enjoy that game. Story was a little bit confusing, but still enjoyable nevertheless. And last but certainly not least, we now have a little bit more information about Borderlands Legacy Collection that is coming to the Nintendo Switch. We know that the developer that are handling it is a development team called, I believe it's called Turn Me Up. I apologize if I'm saying the name wrong. It's not Virtuos or Panic Button or Iron Galaxy or anything like that. So hopefully they'll handle it that game well. But according to what they are claiming, the Switch version of the Borderlands Legacy Collection will run at 1080p, 30 frames per second. They're claiming that the art assets are not going to be downgraded, and the game will have motion controls, which, while it would have been nice to see the game run at 60 though, if it's a stable 30 frames per second, that's fine. And the fact that it will be at 1080p, which means dock more than likely will be 720p, although they haven't confirmed that yet. I'm still not a big fan of what 2K is doing in terms of having only one game on the cartridge, where you still need to download it and then you have to download the rest. I'm not a big fan of that approach, especially after seeing how CD Projekt Red and Saber Interactive handled Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and 4A Games handled Metro Redux and Last Light on the Nintendo Switch. So, like I said last week, I'm very mixed on what 2K is doing. On one hand, I'm happy they're bringing the games over, but on the other hand, the whole download requirement kind of turns me off just a bit, though. So, but we'll have to wait and see how big of an impact that has when I think the game comes out May 29th. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent part out of the way, we'll get started with our first one. And this one has to do with some rumors going around in regards of possibly a remake of several Mario titles. Now, it is worth pointing out before I begin talking about this that this is a rumor, so there's no way to know 100% for certain, and until we hear an official confirmation from Nintendo, it is worth taking this with a huge grain of salt. That being said, though, I do think there may be some truth to the rumor, including the possibility of Super Mario 3D World coming to the Nintendo Switch. I mean, when you look at a lot of Wii U titles making their way over to the Nintendo Switch, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Donkey Kong, Tropical Freeze, and so on, though, it does kind of give the impression that this rumor could be true. But nevertheless, a grain of salt, it needs to be taken with this, though, in this rumor. But in regards of this rumor, though, especially with an icon character like Mario, which to me I view as Mario as iconic as, say, Bugs Bunny is to Warner Brothers, Mickey Mouse is to Disney, or, say, Yogi Bear, Flintstones, for those, the Jetsons and Scooby-Doo are the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Mario is probably what is Nintendo, one of the most iconic characters out there. So it's kind of interesting to hear about this rumor of exactly that we could see several Mario games make their way over to the Nintendo Switch. In an article from VentureBeat, which has also picked up several stories on this as well, it reads, quote, "The Super Mario series is turning 35 years old this year, and Nintendo has big plans for the plumber's birthday. That includes updating and bringing back most of his games from the Nintendo Switch. According to a report from VGC, Eurogame is backing up that report, and GameBeat as well. The core of the report is that Nintendo originally planned to focus on Mario's 35th anniversary at E3 in Los Angeles in June, but organizers canceled that event due to the spread of the coronavirus. Nintendo is going ahead with that promotion and will likely hold a direct style event to promote all the details. This includes includes info on remasters, a Paper Mario game, the upcoming Mario film, and Universal Studios Super Nintendo World theme park, though." A spokesperson provided to GameBeat says, "We have nothing to announce on the topic." In regards to the remaster, it says, "For the remasters, our source is telling us that Nintendo is pursuing something like a Super Mario All-Star 2 for the 3D Mario games. This will include Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and then Super Mario Galaxy. It's likely that the 3D world may get its own separate deluxe style release. While it's possible that older 3D Mario games could come in a single compilation, it's also likely that Nintendo will release them individually as they did with its Zelda remaster. I reached out to Nintendo and will update if the publisher responds." It says, quote, it also says that the Paper Mario game, meanwhile, represents a return to that franchise root. That means something closer to the N64 and GameCube games, which are beloved, and leaves behind the baggage as a more forgettable entry on the 3DS and Wii U. Finally, expect Nintendo to fill out the Mario celebration in other ways as well. So this could be more Mario games on the Nintendo Switch Online subscription service, for example. Nintendo wants to make the Switch a great system for Mario fans, and we should start to see that soon. They also mentioned a correction in this article where they said, quote, "I originally wrote that the 3D Mario collection will include Super Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. I changed that to drop 2. If that happens, I cannot confirm it." So it's possible that Super Mario Galaxy 2 may not be part of this collection, although we do not know at this time, though. Now, this is kind of interesting in terms, assuming this report is true, though. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I do kind of think that there may be some truth to this, especially if they are planning to port Super Mario 3D World over to the Nintendo Switch, given how we've seen other Wii U ports make their way over to the Nintendo Switch recently. So I could see this one being true, although I'm curious to see how this one will work, especially considering the touchscreen functionality, although I'm sure Nintendo will find a way around that, though. As far as the sort of this collection, similar to what Super Mario All-Stars was back in the days of the Super Nintendo, which was a collection of a more updated version of Super Mario 1, 2, 3, and it includes the Super Mario, what Japan calls Super Mario Bros. 2, we refer to it as the Lost Levels, a much more difficult version of the original Super Mario Bros. So they don't know if they're going to take that route or have each one of them individually, though. My guess is that if this is true, I'm thinking that they're going to aim for each of these games individually. I can't see how Nintendo is going to cram all these games into one cartridges, though. I mean, we've seen impossible ports happen before. We've seen impossible ports even cram into a small cartridge. To be exact, I mean, see Witcher 3 Wild Hunt as an example of that. But I wouldn't surprise me if they decide to basically do them individually, though. One thing I'm curious is that, regarding if this rumor is true, is how they're going to treat some of these games. I mean, Super Mario Galaxy originally was designed around the whole Wii Remote and Nunchuk functionality. And I'm curious to see if that's true. Will they have to change some things around? Will we have to use just are we going to have to play it with just the Joy-Cons? Can we still use the Pro Controller? Are there going to be any form of motion controls in the game with the Pro Controller? So I'm a little curious how that one is going to work, and if that one does well, could they change their mind and bring Mario Galaxy 2? 64 is also kind of interesting. Again, that was a fun game when that originally came out back in 1996. I remember playing that when getting my Nintendo 64. I'm curious to see how that one's going to work. Will that be, like all these, will this be a physical or digital release? Is this going to be a straight up port of just how the game originally played on the Nintendo 64? Or are we talking about sort of a remastered version in the way that Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask was when those games were released back on the Nintendo 3DS? You know, Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D, and of course, let's not forget Star Fox 64 3D, which was a remastered version of the original Star Fox 64, similar to what we saw with Night Dive did with Turok Dinosaur Hunter and Turok Seed of Evil. Or are we talking about something along the lines of, say, what they did last year with Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, a full-on remake of the game? So I'm a little curious to see what direction they will go with if they decide to bring Super Mario 64 over to the Nintendo Switch. As far as the Paper Mario one, you know, I'm not a huge Paper Mario fan, but it is an enjoyable series nevertheless. It may not be as iconic as, say, Legends of the Seven Star was on the Super Nintendo, but it is still a fun game indeed. And I'm a little curious to see if it means, what they mean by going back to its roots, though. Maybe they are going to go back to the way it was on the back on the GameCube and the N64. If that's true, I'm sure that's going to make a lot of fans happy. Although I didn't hate the other entries, though, I could see why people enjoyed those over the newest ones that they did on the Wii U and the 3DS, to be exact. So overall, certainly, assuming these rumors are true, certainly a lot of Mario announcements and all that stuff, which is fine. Hopefully, we'll have to wait and see if any of this turns out to be true. I certainly would be open to these titles coming to the Switch, especially if this means we have to wait until we see a true sequel to Super Mario Odyssey, or the next big Mario game, to be exact. I mean, I wouldn't mind Mario Galaxy 3 or Mario Odyssey 2 or anything like that, but it is what it is. But overall, I would say very interesting rumor. We'll have to wait until there's an official confirmation on this one, if it turns out to be true or not. But I wouldn't completely rule this out as being a false rumor, especially the Super Mario 3D World part, considering a lot of the Wii U games we've seen come to the Nintendo Switch. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 2, and this one has to do with a controversy Randy Pitchford has once again dug himself into this time, which isn't sitting well with a lot of folks. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at another controversy that Randy Pitchford, or if I'm saying his name correctly, has now got himself caught into again. Now, I'm sure most of you know about Gearbox and so forth. While they do produce one of my favorite first-person shooters games out there, the Borderlands series, they are known for also several different kinds of controversies as well. Some of them are most noticeable, such as the Alien Colonial Marines debacle, which to this day Pitchford still lies about that, and not to mention there are allegations that he may have taken money that was supposed to go to Colonial Marines to develop Borderlands 2, which has been loved by a lot of Borderlands fans, to his attitude and so forth, though. And we saw that played out during the whole situation with Borderlands 3, a game that I definitely did enjoy it, and it was definitely one of my favorite games of 2019. I mean, granted, it's more Borderlands and so forth, but nevertheless, it is still a fun game indeed. But there were many controversies with this announcement. There was the way Randy Pitchford's behavior in terms of some of the announcements of it being a Epic Store exclusive, which didn't sit well with a lot of folks, to his behavior to supposedly his lawyer, to a former employee who did the voice of Claptrap, to basically the whole issue with a USB stick having, shall we say, inappropriate stuff that shouldn't be there at a medieval times and all that stuff, to him being supposedly banned on Twitter for the supposedly posting pictures of a animal or a mice being tortured or something like that. Whatever. There have been some issues that they've had, and this latest issue has come up that has really upsetted a lot of employees though. In an article from Game Industry Biz, it reads that, quote, Borderlands 3 developer accused Gearbox of shortening bonuses. Kotaku reports that promising six-figure bonuses has been significantly reduced, studio plan as an IPO. The article reads, quote, Gearbox yesterday informed a number of developers that the Borderlands 3 bonus they have been expecting would be greatly reduced, according to Kotaku. It's worth pointing out that Jason Schreier from Kotaku reported on this, though. The website spoke with 6 developers at the studio, some who said employees have been promised a bonus of at least $100,000. 3 of the employees Kotaku spoke to said they were in a meeting with Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford, explaining that the bonuses would be significantly smaller than expected because the game ran over budget, didn't meet the company's internal sales projection, despite the claim of the game being very successful, and because Gearbox has expanded its team, including opening a new studio in Quebec. The bonus cuts may have been particularly disheartening to developers, as the website said more than a dozen and current former Gearbox staff told the studios pay below average salary for the game industry, with the idea that its profit-sharing bonus payment made up for that. Pitchford reportedly told those who don't like the change that they were free to quit. Our studio is a talent-led, and we believe strongly in everyone sharing a profitability, a Gearbox representative told Kotaku in a statement confirming a forecast update was made to the staff. The talent at Gearbox enjoys participation in the upside of our game, to our knowledge. The most generous royalty bonus system in AAA games. Since the program began, Gearbox talent has earned over $100 million in royalty bonus above and beyond traditional compensation, though. Borderlands 3 was the fastest selling title in the history of publisher 2K Games and sold nearly 8 million copies from its September 2019 launch through the end of the year. While 2K partner Take-Two Interactive said the game exceeded expectation at launch, its most recent earnings report mentioned that the company had lowered its expectations for the game for the fiscal year. And Kotaku is recently reported, though, that it basically has the article, but it also points out that quote, it points out about how the company Gearbox has unfortunately been in financial trouble over the years. It basically points out how, or others have pointed out, though, how the company that, because Battleborn didn't do well, Alien Clone Marines didn't do well, and all that stuff. The article reads that yesterday's news, combined with word of Pitchford's heavy bonus, has upset a number of Gearbox employees, some who say that they expect an exodus in the near future. Those who made financial plans based on the expectations set by the company's management may now find themselves in tough spots. Gearbox, which is privately owned, has been seeking to go public, according to 2 people familiar with the company's plan. It remains to be seen how this news will impact that. Honestly, my honest opinion is, I don't know whether legally they could do this or not, but regardless of what direction is, I personally think the guy needs to go. I really do. I do not believe these employees should be paid below average or anything like that. If this is true about it being, this game being over budget, to me it sounds like there was a lot of, may have been a lot of mismanaged. Now, I'm not a game developer or anything like that, but I think that it kind of looks very scummy what Gearbox did, and personally, I still think Randy Pitchford needs to go. I mean, this guy has sort of basically has been lying out of his ass on a lot of things, though, and it's been creating controversy after controversy and all that. I wouldn't blame those who want to leave and because they can't put up with his shenanigans anymore. So it's ridiculous that these employees are kind of being screwed over in a way, especially the hard work that they put into for Borderlands 3, which a lot of people do like, though. It's just I think some of it is also a lot of these companies set their expectations maybe way too high and all that stuff. We've seen how a lot of companies do they want to make all the money in the world, not some of the money, like what we saw with Activision. Because they didn't make all the money in the world, they decided to lay off a lot of the employees so that their CEOs can keep their bonuses and so forth, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people hate Activision, though. And I can see why a lot of people may not be comfortable of what Randy Pitchford did. So, my overall opinion, though, whether they go public or not, though, the guy needs to go. I personally think he needs to go, though, because he seems to continue to hurt Gearbox's reputation and all that stuff. We saw how that played out with Colonial Marines. We saw how that played out with Battleborn. And we're starting to see that play out with Borderlands 3. Even though the game is a success, it didn't meet the expectations that they were setting in terms of all that. Although you could debate whether they set their expectations too high or not. So, overall, I personally believe this guy needs to go. I really do think he needs to go. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 3, and this one has to do with the announcement of Trails of Cold Steel 4 has been announced, coming to, not only will the game be out this year for the PS4, but it's now announced that it will be coming to PC and the Nintendo Switch. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the announcement of Trails, if I'm saying the name correctly, Trails of Cold Steel 4, announced as coming to the Nintendo Switch and PC next year, but the PS4 version will be coming first, and it'll be coming out in autumn. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of this series before or anything like that. I've heard of the developer, I believe Falcom, if I'm saying the name correctly, though. I apologize if I'm not. They're the ones that developed the Yeast or the Y series. I remember playing that game when it came out on the PlayStation 2 and the PSP. I've played the game when it was released, one of the entries when it was released as a download on the PS4. And just recently, though, the recent entries, though, I played on the Nintendo Switch when that came out. I mean, it's a very fun game. The Switch version, you definitely get a little bit of a Moozle/Warrior vibe out of it to a certain degree. But as far as their support for the Nintendo Switch goes, has been kind of, well, some of their statements don't exactly, not everyone agrees with their statements. They've made in the past how they would have to hire more people or all that stuff, to basically they are more focused on like the Vita and, you know, the PS4 and all that. But with the Switch sort of blowing up in popularity, though, not only around the world, but especially in Japan, it looks like they may have kind of changed their tune a little bit. As we all know, Trial of Cold Steel 3 is coming out this year, though. Supposedly, the launch date for that one will be on June 30th, barring any major change right now. And there is supposedly a demo out available to download, though. I'll have to try the demo out as well. But we now know that the fourth one will be coming over to the Nintendo Switch and PC, although that will happen supposedly next year. In an article posted on GameSpot, it reads, quote, Famicom's Trial Cold Steel series has made waves among hardcore RPG fans for years now. Today, the company announced that the fourth entry in the series will come to North America this autumn on the PC4, with the PC and Nintendo Switch release coming in 2021. If you haven't heard of the Legends of Heroes, it's a series of loosely connected RPGs that runs back in the late 80s. Though all the games in the series have found fans in Western Shores, the fan base for the series exploded after the release of Trials in the Sky on PSP back in 2001. The Trials of Cold Steel series takes place after the events of Trials in the Sky and difference itself throughout its high school setting. Excuse me though. Shoot, excuse me. So Trial of Cold Steel 4 will be the last game in its sub-series. Excuse me. God, I sneezed right there. According to Famicom president, though, we're only halfway through the greater Trial series. This title holds an important place as the end of the Cold Steel series and the midpoint of an overall story an overall story that began with Trials in the Sky, told Game Informer, were hint at basically various mysteries since Trails of the Sky and all those related to the Ebronan Empire, Rebonian, apologize if I'm not saying it incorrectly, will be revealed here. The game's predecessor, Trial of Cold Steel 3, first made its way to the West on the PS4 back in October 2019. However, the game came to the PC very recently on March 23rd. In an interview, they explained on December 29th, they said why they stick with the classic RPG formula. They said, since we are a small studio, we don't have the resource to create so many assets or craft an open world game. I would say that no matter how big the studio gets, we'll still focus on story-driven games designed in our particular way. One of the cool things that happens because of this is that while we're focused on the story, we can eventually lead up to new events that will open the game a bit more. When you're in the final arc, you'll be able to explore more freely and take on new activities whenever you want. So it's nice to know that it's coming to the PS4 and the coming to the PC and the Nintendo Switch, but obviously we're going to have to wait next year for that game to come out. In the meantime, the fourth one is going to be coming out this fall, though. One thing I'm curious is that since they're bringing the third and fourth one, though, I'm a little bit confused why they haven't brought over the first or second one, though. And for what I've been hearing, and assuming this is correct, this may have to do with a licensing issue or a publishing issue, as Xseed supposedly published the first and second one, while NIS America, I think, is publishing the third and the fourth one, to be exact. So if that's the case, it's possible this could be a publishing issue, though. I do hope, however, that if the third one and the fourth one do well on the Nintendo Switch, I'm hoping it will encourage them to basically bring the first two over to the Nintendo Switch. I think a lot of Switch owners would love to see the first two come over, especially since we're bringing the third and fourth one, and perhaps the other entries as well to bring them over to the Nintendo Switch too. I mean, the Switch, I'm starting to slowly see, similar to the Game Boy Advance and the DS and 3DS, it could become what those systems were, which is sort of like a mecca of like RPGs. And I think RPGs, in my view, do fit very well with the Nintendo Switch, especially with the whole console handheld hybrid approach and all that stuff. So we'll have to wait and see if the first and second one will come to the Nintendo Switch. I hope they do, but overall, nice that they're bringing the fourth one over, even though we have to wait next year for it to come out, since it'll be coming to the PS4 first before coming to the Switch and PC. And I will certainly give you my thoughts on the demo when I eventually try out the third one, though. But hopefully the fourth one and the third one do well, and hopefully they'll bring other entries to the series over to Nintendo Switch. And I'm hoping the developers will take the Switch maybe a little bit more serious this time around. I'm hoping, though. But either way, glad that the fourth one is coming to the Nintendo Switch, indeed. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 4, and this one has to do with an unfortunate announcement in regards of the Last of Us 2. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 4 of our My 2 Cents video, and for this one has to do with, well, unfortunately, a disappointing news, and this has to do with regards to the game The Last of Us 2. Now, this was probably one of the biggest titles that a lot of people, especially for those who own a PS4, was looking forward to. A sequel to the first one that was released back on the PS3, which later saw a remastered version released on the PS4, though. Many people were definitely looking forward to this game. However, it got delayed before. It was originally supposed to come out in 2019, then it got pushed, I think, to like in February. Then it was originally supposed to come out in May, I believe May 29th as the original launch date. But like with the situation with the Outer Worlds on the Switch, in which that game was supposed to come out on March 3rd, but got pushed back to, now they're saying, I think June 3rd, with a 6 GB download for it, even if you're getting the physical one though. It seems that unfortunately The Last of Us 2 has now been delayed, at least according to what Sony's saying, indefinitely. From an article from The Verge, if I'm saying this name correctly though, it points out this game has been delayed due to the coronavirus, but they also mentioned the Iron Man VR has also been. It reads, quote, Sony announced on Thursday that it's delayed Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Part 2 until further notice because of the coronavirus pandemic. The game has previously been scheduled to launch on May 29th. Logistically, the global crisis is preventing us from providing the launch experience our players deserve, Sony said in the statement. Sony has also delayed Iron Man VR. Quote, it says, we were faced with the reality that due to logistics beyond our control, we couldn't launch The Last of Us Part 2 to our satisfaction, Naughty Dog said about the delay in a statement. We want to make sure everyone gets to play The Last of Us Part 2 around the same time, ensuring that we're doing everything possible to preserve the best experience for everyone. This meant delaying the game until such time that we could solve these logistics issues. We're hoping that this won't be a long delay, and we'll update you as soon as we have new information to share, the statement continues. They point out how that it was delayed from the delay first happened in October, then it was delayed on February 21st, and then moved to May 29th to what it is right now. It turns out to be that Iron Man VR aren't the first major time to be affected by the coronavirus, dude. Square Enix said on Monday that it will be shipping copies of Final Fantasy VII Remake earlier than usual to Europe and Australia, and this week to other Western regions in an effort to get the game player in time for its April 10 release date. It seems like other games released could be affected by the pandemic as well. So it appears as though that unfortunately, it sounds like, at least according to some of their statement, that the game is done. So it's not canceled or anything like that. So the game is going to happen. It will be released. It's just not going to be released at this moment, or it won't be released at its launch date though. And it kind of does raise some questions about, say, if this is happening to The Last of Us 2, could we see other games get impacted by this? Could we see a situation like, say, Ghost of Tsushima, another high-profile title from Sony and Sucker Punch, the creators of the Sly Cooper and the Infamous series? Could we see those games get delayed? And perhaps could we see a situation like this with the Xbox Series X and the PS5? Could we find ourselves in that situation where those systems are not going to be able to launch this year? Now, granted, supposedly those systems are going to come out during the holidays, so we don't know what kind of situation we're going to be in regards to the whole coronavirus situation. Will things return to normal to a certain degree back then, or are we not going to see that kind of situation indeed? And could we see other developers delay some of their games because of what's going on right now with the whole coronavirus? On the other hand, I've heard this before, Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing came out, and those games did very well in terms of sales-wise, in terms of, despite the whole situation with the coronavirus. Although that came out a little bit, that came out sort of the beginning when the whole stay-at-home and the whole, non-essential business shut down, not to mention the whole controversy with GameStop and all that stuff. So, I mean, It is possible that they could have released the game and still do very well and all that stuff, but obviously a lot of businesses, especially with a lot of game developers, are taking certain precautions because of what's been going on though. So I don't really blame Sony for doing this and all that stuff. It does suck that it's not going to come out on May 29th. Hopefully we'll get a new release date like we did with the Outer Worlds for the Nintendo Switch, barring them delaying it again or anything like that. So overall, it is a disappointment, but it is understandable why they are delaying The Last of Us 2. Hopefully it's not a long delay or anything like that. But I will admit, it kind of raises some questions of whether or not we could see other delays of games, whether it's Sony's like Ghost of Tsushima or whatever Nintendo or Microsoft has to offer. And it does kind of raise the question, could we see some sort of delay with the supposedly Xbox Series X or the PS5? Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 5. And this one, I want to give my thoughts on the Bravely Default 2 demo that just recently is out now to download for the Nintendo Switch. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our 5th and final part of our My 2 Cent video. And for this one, I want to talk about and give you my thoughts on the Bravely Default 2 demo that recently came out, and that is available now to download for the Nintendo Switch. So, although the Video Game Awards last year wasn't exactly great for everybody, though, a lot of people kind of criticized it, and a lot of people didn't think it was that good and all that stuff. One of the interesting announcements were made was one of the games was Bravely Default 2, basically a sequel to the original Bravely Default that was released on the Nintendo 3DS, and for some reason they're not counting Bravely Second. I don't know why. It is what it is, though. Now, I never really got into the series, though. I tried it a little bit, but for some reason I didn't really get into it at the time. I wasn't like really that great at RPGs compared to where I am, where I'm a bit better on all that stuff. But this announcement sort of kind of caught my attention, and when they announced last week during the Nintendo Direct that they were doing a demo of the game that will be available to download, I decided to give it a go. And honestly, I would say I'm actually kind of impressed with this one. I'm definitely getting a little bit of an Octopath Traveler vibe to it, which certainly isn't a bad thing. The art style of the game looks nice, though. There are certain areas that look good, but there are some areas that, well, I mean, it doesn't look terrible or anything like that, but I would have to say I kind of liked Octopath Traveler's art style more than this one. Maybe because I love the whole, it's sort of a mixture of modern and old school visuals, you know, or what they're calling, you know, the high definition 2D, though. It's worth pointing out both of those games ran on Unreal Engine. I believe that I believe that Bravely Default 2 runs on Unreal Engine 4 and all that stuff. But overall, I mean, the game visually looks nice and all that, just not as good as Octopath Traveler. The big one has to do with the gameplay, and it follows, mostly follows the standard traditional RPG with a couple of things I've seen in it. For one thing, you do have a choice of picking your classes, though. I believe you have a choice of a white mage, black mage, freelancer, and I think called Vanguard, I think, which focuses on defense, though. One of the characters, I put a mixture of both a black and white mage, though. White mage doing a lot of healing, black mage is doing spells and so forth. And, oh, and I also forgot to mention a monk as well, which does a lot of, like, I think, karate or kung fu moves to be exact. So you could sort of put certain classes that matches, you know, like somewhat like your play style and so forth. The other thing is what's called the BD, which is basically a shorter term for Bravely Default points, though. Or you earn these points by basically, from what I know from playing, from going into defense, or what's called the Brave, though. Every time you do that, you'll get a Bravely Default point, though. And when you activate the Brave mode, you could do like multiple tasks. Like, for example, I believe you could go up to 3, at least on the demo. And if you do that, you can do like, say, like take 3 shots at. Like, for example, I used the Bravely default point. One of the Bravely default points I used to attack one of the enemies, while the other one I used to heal one of my characters, and so forth. So you can use it in any way you want to. You can use it even if you don't have it, but you'll get like what are negative Bravely default points, which means, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you won't be able to use the BT points until it goes back up to 0. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of like what Octopath Traveler did. Is I think they had their own little point system, and when you build that up, you could do like a huge like combo depending on, you know, your character and so forth, especially if you're using like certain attacks and all that. So the combat is kind of similar to a certain degree to Octopath Traveler, which to me, I enjoyed Octopath Traveler. That was definitely it's definitely a favorite of mine on the Nintendo Switch, and I like that you definitely get a little bit of that vibe out of it as well. Another thing I noticed is that in terms of doing quests or side quests though, those are basically easy to do, as you can see sort of like, you'll see like sort of like that thought cloud in the head. If you see like a blue one, you could do like a certain side quest, and they sort of point you in the right direction of which way to go. For example, the red one represents a side quest, while the yellow one represents, you know, the main quest, and so forth. And for me, I did basically the side quest, which in this one told me to attack several wolves to get like 5 pellets though, and to do that, and if you do that, your reward is getting like I believe it's 6, I could be wrong, could be the wrong number, potions to use. So it's definitely easy to understand which is the side quest and which is the main quest, so you don't easily get lost and all that stuff. So my takeaway from the demo is that I definitely like what they're doing with this. The combat definitely has a little bit of an Octopath Traveler vibe to it, which certainly is a good thing. My only real criticism I have is that the visuals, again, not terrible, awful. It looks nice, especially some of the art style in the game though. It's just not as good as Octopath Traveler is. Again, that's down to preference and taste, so you'll have to, that's down to what your preference and taste is. So to me, it's not a terrible looking game, just not as good as Octopath Traveler is. But other than that though, the gameplay is enjoyable and fun, and like I said, you definitely get an Octopath Traveler vibe out of it though. I am looking forward to when this game comes out. Supposedly it's aimed for a 2020 launch date. We'll see if they stick to that 2020 launch date or if that gets changed or anything like that. And if this one does well, hopefully maybe it will convince Square Enix to consider maybe remaking the first Bravely Default and maybe Bravely Second. I mean, hell, if Nintendo can remake Link's Awakening and do a remake version on the Nintendo Switch, I can't see how Square Enix couldn't consider the idea of remaking the first Bravely Default and possibly doing Bravely Second. So we'll have to wait and see if that happens. But overall, I like the demo. I like what they're doing with Bravely Default 2, and it's definitely one of the games I'm going to be keeping an eye out for when it comes out to the Switch. Supposedly, assuming there's a major change or anything like that, supposedly coming out sometime this year. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the rumored Mario games that Nintendo could be preparing though? Do you think these rumors are true? And if so, do you think that they're going to do each of these games separately, or do you think they're going to find a way to put them in together into one cartridge, or put a certain amount in the cartridge and you have to download the rest? And what are your thoughts about them going back to the roots, their roots in terms of the new Paper Mario game? Do you like that approach, or do you prefer them going the roots of Color Splash and Sticker Star Adventure? What are your thoughts about this whole situation with Randy Pitchford in regards of these bonuses and so forth? Do you think that this has gone way out of line? Do you think Randy Pitchford, they should let him go, or do you think that this isn't really a big deal at all? What are your thoughts about Trial of Cold Steel 4 coming to the Nintendo Switch next year? Same with the PC version, and the PS4 version coming out this fall, though. Are you excited about the game coming to the Nintendo Switch? Are you looking forward to getting it to the Switch or PC next year? Or are you going to get it for the PS4 instead when it supposedly comes out in the fall? And do you think that they should consider bringing the first and second one over to the Nintendo Switch? What are your thoughts about The Last of Us 2 getting delayed indefinitely, though? Do you think Sony made the right call to delay it until the situation with the coronavirus has at least died down, or at least we're in a better position than where we are right now? Do you think Sony's overreacting on this, or do you think this is the right call for them to do? And can you see other games getting delayed, like Ghost of Tsushima, to the possibility like the Xbox One Series X or the PS5 could be in any way delayed because of what's going on right now? And what are your thoughts about the Bravely Default demo? Do you agree with my thoughts about the demo? Do you disagree? Have you tried the demo out? And how do you feel about the Bravely Default 2 based on the demo that has come out so far? Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal Me and Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video, along with any of the articles I talked about, and including, the gameplay footage of me playing the demo version of Bravely Default 2. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Stay safe out there. And of course, wash your hands with soap and water. Hand sanitizers can help, but should never be treated as a replacement for washing your hands with soap and water. Bye.